Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to make garlic butter chicken with some snap peas and boiled potatoes, and we're going to whip up some homemade sourdough cheddar bay biscuits. So let's start. We're going to do a quick blanch on our snap peas because we'll be throwing them in with our butter chicken at the end. But I want to give them a quick blanch in the water that we're going to boil our potatoes in. So that way when we pop them in with our chicken later, they'll just have a lovely flavor. They'll be soft and tender crisp. And blanching, if you don't know what that is putting them in boiling hot water for about 2 minutes to really bring out their vibrant green colors and make them softer so that when you do season them up later or do a quick saute on them, they won't be hard and crunchy. And while those are blanching, I'm going to have my little potatoes here. This is just a melody of them. They're a little big to just boil by themselves, so I'm going to have them. And then once our snap peas are done blanching, we're going to pop these in here. It's kind of a way you can reduce the number of pots on your stove. Instead of having 2 pots of boiling water, just use that and then slide it out. There we go. So we'll get these all chopped up. They're called like a rainbow melody of new potatoes. So just those little potatoes that are a bit more waxy, so they'll hold their form, unlike like a russet potato. And these will be lovely because we're gonna boil them up, but the kind of garlic butter sauce that our chicken is going to be, that is just going to taste delicious when you drizzle that over these potatoes. So that's kind of what makes this meal, is that garlic butter sauce. So a few more here, and then I can see my snap peas are just about ready because they are very bright green. Okay, so I've got my potatoes chopped up. I'm going to grab my bowl right here, and we're going to grab some tongs. And so this is how I kind of know that they're ready, is they went from being kind of like that dull normal green to this very vibrant green. And we're going to just use my tongs and pick them out. And that way they can sit until I'm ready to saute them, but they'll be like a tender crisp. There we go. And I will say snap peas are just, I love peas in general, but snap peas, snow peas, they're just so good. Here we go. It's funny, my kids though, the way they eat them, it's hilarious. They just like pop the beans out and eat the beans and not the whole like casing of it. And I'm like, oh, at least you're eating something. They think they're edamame, and I'm like, they're not edamame. Okay, we've got our beautiful, vibrant green snap peas here, and we're just gonna hold them to the side until we're ready for them. And let's add in our potatoes here and let them start boiling. There we go. Oh, apparently I missed one. I'm not sure how I missed one. Ugh. Doing my little yoga stretch there. Slide these in. I might have to drain a little water out. I always try to guesstimate, but I think I over guesstimated. It's pretty close to the top. So let me pour a little bit of this out so we don't have a bubble over. There we go. And then we're gonna let this boil up. I'm going to add in a little bit of salt here because it's really just going to be the garlic butter on the potato. So we'll salt a little bit, just about a teaspoon or so. Okay. And before we start making the biscuits, let's season up our chicken so it can kind of sit before we do our saute on it. So first, I'm going to start by butterflying our chicken. So I'm going to cut it all the way through. I always say butterfly, but I cut it all the way through. So I'm just cutting them in half to thin them out because these breasts are huge and they won't cook up nice if they're that thick. And then again, if you see any little bits of fat, just trim those off because those will just be chewy on your chicken. Chicken fat does not cook up nicely. It just gets rubbery. So I've got these two. We're going to butterfly this all the way through, cut it all the way through. I guess fillet it in half. And there we go. Again, cut off any bits of fat. There we go. And there's one's got a good chunk of fat on the side. There. And we'll go through and do that. And then we have one more to do it. We're kind of cooking for a small army here. So it's a bit more food than most people would be cooking. And here. Cut through the thickest part. Try to make that up as even as possible. That way they'll saute up nicely. And we're going to have to saute these up in batches, but that is a-okay. Okay, let's get rid of this fat here. Give my hands a quick rinse. Okay.
You got a question? How many are you cooking for tonight?
We are cooking for 9 tonight. So we'll have 8 big fillets, but the little ones don't eat a whole fillet. So get our normal. I'm going to use the last of my Worcestershire, which is about a tablespoon. It's on my, I always forget it, but it's on my list to buy now. Love this stuff. The acid in it helps just keep the chicken nice and moist and has a lovely little flavor to it. And we're going to give a generous sprinkling of garlic salt. I'm going to run through these with my hands and kind of rub them up in just a second. But I'm just going to put all of the spices on them. Some oregano. I want to say a half a tablespoon of oregano. About a half a tablespoon of parsley. About a half a teaspoon of black pepper, ground black pepper. And then we're going to use some fresh lemon juice. We're going to use half of a lemon juice for this.
You have a question, and you're the expert. So, is garlic salt just garlic and salt combined, or is it slightly different?
It is. It's simply like garlic. I will say it's not exactly garlic powder and garlic salt together. It is essentially garlic juice that has salt mixed into it that has then been dehydrated, and then they grind it back up again. So it is like a mixture of it, but it's not simply mixing garlic powder and salt together. So it's made from a juice that then they dehydrate more. So we've got our juice of our half of our lemon in here, and we're going to really kind of coat all of this up. And kind of, this is our kind of quick little marinade. And I'm just going to really smush it all together. And then we're going to kind of let it sit and marinate for a little bit. Make sure I'm going to steal all of those herbs from around. We've got our pile here. And now I'm going to wash my hands. And then we're going to make our sourdough biscuits. Get them in the oven going. So these are going to be our drop biscuits, which are a little bit different than our, like when I do my press and fold biscuits. So we're going to be using some melted butter here. So let me get my dry ingredients here. We're going to start with 2 cups of flour. And we're going to use all-purpose flour. You don't want to use red flour for this because it's a bit too dense. It won't give you the right crumb on it. So 1 and 2. I realized I didn't grab my baking soda. So I'm going to grab my baking soda and my baking powder. And my measuring. Here we go. We need, for our baking soda, 1 teaspoon, not a tablespoon. Don't put a tablespoon in, that would be way too much. 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And then, gotta grab my garlic salt. We're going to put in a teaspoon and a half of garlic salt, which is going to be a couple really good shakes. You can guesstimate on it. And this is going to be for our cheddar. We're making our sourdough cheddar bay biscuits that we'll be having with our buttered chicken, our boiled potatoes, and our snap peas. So I'm going to give this a quick little mix around. There we go. So we've got our dry ingredients here. And then let's get our wet ingredients mixed up, and then we'll add them together. We can do it in the small one. We need a half a cup of our discard. So let me grab my sourdough discard. And let's grab a measuring cup here. Aha, got a half a cup one. So I fed my discard earlier today because I'm going to make some bread. And look, it is all the way up to the top.
Your starter.
My starter, yes. I was discard before I fed it. But you see, it's very happy, very bubbly. So this is perfect for making bread. And I need to change the top out now. So we're going to do a half a cup of our discard. Got my small measuring cup today. So whoop. This is nice and bubbly. So we've got a half a cup. And then we're going to add in our butter. We have 8 tablespoons or 1 stick of melted butter. So a little bit different from my press and my cutout butter or biscuit measurements, because those require cold butter that we cut into it. But we're going to use our melted butter. And then we're going to use 3/4 a cup of buttermilk. You could also use regular milk or half and half for this, but I'm going to use my buttermilk because buttermilk biscuits are delicious. So 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk. And we're going to give this a nice mix, and we will add it to our biscuits. And then we're going to add in a big handful of cheddar cheese, about a cup. And we can put them out on they're drop biscuits, so we'll drop them out on our baking sheet that we lined with parchment paper. And these are going to bake for about 15, 16 minutes. My oven is pretty accurate. Some ovens can go longer, so it could bake up to 20 minutes. I find gas ovens typically take a little bit longer to bake.
Angel said she made naan for the first time.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I hope it is so. It's one of our kids' favorites and our favorites. It's just so, it's so pillowy soft. Okay, we're going to add in our liquid mixture. And then we're going to give this a nice mix and then add in our cheese. I'm using my dough whisk to mix this up because, again, I don't want to over mix it. You want it to be chunky and lumpy because that's going to give you a nice fluffy biscuit. So don't over mix it.
You had a question. How much flour?
2 cups of flour. There we go. Let's add in our cheddar cheese. 1 cup of cheddar cheese, which is a really good handful, maybe. This is about a half, so 2 handfuls.
What is discarded?
Yes, discard is if you're in the process of making sourdough bread, you have your starter, which is fermented flour. You have to feed your starter every so often. And when you do that, you throw away half of it, which is the discard. And so there's lots of great recipes that you can use the discard with so that you don't have, you're not just throwing it away. Okay. Got our biscuits right here. I'm just giving a little mush together. And then we're going to be ready to drop these on and bake them up. And we will coat these with the, after they come out, we'll make a little kind of an herby butter to put on top to give you that true kind of cheddar bay mix for it.
Someone made your pasta salad as well.
Oh, good. I hope they liked it. That one's, everybody loves that pasta salad because it's different from most pasta salads. Okay, let's make our little drop biscuits here. I'm just kind of giving them a little bit of a crunch to hold them together, but not super tight because I want them to be really fluffy. Now, if you were to use milk instead of buttermilk, they would be a slightly bit wetter. But the buttermilk is just so nice. And I don't often have buttermilk. I will say that. Okay, giving these just a little squeeze to hold them together. I'm hoping you should get about, I made them a little big, so I'm probably going to get 9 biscuits out of these, but typically you could get up to 12. But big biscuits are delicious.
You have a question. How do you make a starter sourdough?
So yes, it's a long process. It takes about a week or so to get it done. We do have some videos up on how to make a starter. I'm gonna add a splash of buttermilk in here, but it is essentially equal parts flour and water that ferment together that you feed every day for about a week, giving it more flour and water and throwing out bits. So we do have videos on our page uploaded there and a recipe card, so you could start your sourdough journey. But I will say I loved my sourdough journey, and it's been great.
And we're about to redo it.
Oh, yes. We also are about to redo the sourdough starter because so many people have had questions about it. So I have a jar and everything ready just to kind of go through it and work people through that process and the questions they may have. Okay, so we've got our little drop biscuits here. I'm going to push some of these a little bit together, and then we're going to go pop these in the oven. There we go. So these are going to bake at 400 for about, these are a little bit bigger, so I'm going to put these for about 16 minutes. If you made 12, they'd probably be closer to 15. So let me put my timer on. Here we go. I'm making sure my oven's still on. Ever since I turned my oven off when I meant to push start, I've been paranoid. Okay. Now we're ticking here. I forgot my olive oil. Let's grab my olive oil. Now this is a butter garlic sauce, but we're gonna saute our chicken first in olive oil so we don't burn our butter. I have a really big pan here, so we're gonna put a good amount in so that it doesn't stick. And we're gonna start heating this guy up nice and hot. I'm gonna slide these back here so that when I'm ready to throw them in, they will be ready. But while we're waiting, let's prep our herbs for our butter garlic chicken. Okay, we've got lots of parsley. Normally I would use my garden parsley, but I have overpicked it and it needs to recoup. I think I'm going to go to Home Depot and buy 10 more plants. I need more basil too. I bought 8 basil plants. Now poor Jackie, he destroyed a couple of them. They're fighting for them. They've got 1 leaf on them. He sat on them, smushed them, picked them, but he's been good now with the garden. He hasn't been picking this stuff recently. So, I've forgiven him for practically killing all my basil, but they're recuperating. But I realize I need more because just how much fresh herbs that I use. So I'm going to get more basil, more parsley. My other ones are pretty good. I have to get dill and a few more other herbs, but nothing is better than having an herb garden, and those fresh herbs that you can harvest are just so delicious. And fresh herbs is such a great way to elevate your cooking. It just adds such fresh flavors to it. And you'll learn a lot about the different herbs when you start to garden with them and what they look like and their flavors and how they're really just, some of them are really different fresh compared to dried. So we've got our parsley here. Now we have our green onions. I'm going to give these a rinse. My parsley had already rinsed up the other day, but let's give these guys a quick rinse. And I'm going to grab my scissors here. I've got 3. And now these green onions look more like spring onions versus green onions. They're really big. Take these off, and then we're going to mince these up. And hopefully my oil is nice and hot and we can start adding our chicken in. I'm going to have to do them in batches because I know I can't get all 8 in there. So I'm just going to do 4 and 4. And what we'll do is we're going to saute our chicken off, and then we will take them out, and then we're going to saute up some onions, the green onions as well as a yellow onion, and kind of make our garlic butter sauce. And then towards the end, we'll put the chicken and everything back in. Here we go. Okay. Let's see if you're nice and hot. I'm going to do my drip test, see if I got a good sizzle. There we go. You can see it sizzling. Let's start adding our chicken in. I'm going to give it a nice kind of coat in the oil. And it's okay when you're frying your chicken, if you have bits that get stuck to the bottom of your pan, don't worry about it because we're going to be deglazing it to make our butter garlic sauce. So that will just add flavor later. Since I will say I'm not using a non-stick pan, I'm just using my basic metal all-clad, which means you're going to get a little stickage. But that's not a problem because we will be deglazing. Okay, let's chop up our yellow onion while we wait. And I'm going to give it a slice through. I'm going to remove my whole top layer here. And then I'm going to dice it up fairly small simply because I want the sauce to be the star. I don't want the onions. So I'm going to do a fairly small slice on these and then mince them because I rather them disappear in the sauce versus being like, oh, that's a big onion. Here we go. And then once I've got this one chopped up, I'll go right back over with them a couple of times. If you find your knife is slipping on your onion while you're cutting, you just need to sharpen it up. I will say sharp knives are safer than dull ones because dull knives will slip when you're trying to cut. And that's how you're going to, it's those accidents that you kind of cut yourself with. Okay. These are looking pretty good. Okay. We got these prepped up. While we're waiting, we are going to prep up a sourdough loaf for tomorrow to eat. So I fed my sourdough earlier today. I want to say, fed it around maybe 2:30, 3 o'clock. After we did our lunch stream, I fed it up. So it's been bubbling. You want to feed it, I would say 4 to 8 hours before you're ready to use it. We're going to add on here. We are going to add in 150 grams of our active starter. Tart. And I will say, if you're going into the sourdough journey, you want to use a scale. It just makes it so much easier. Although, Teddy the other day, we kind of did a fun video with him, and he just threw random amounts together, and he made himself a perfect mini loaf of sourdough. It was I was like the texture of it, and I said, I really think this is going to turn out. So I baked it up, and sure enough, it worked. So we've got 150 grams of this. I'm going to check my chicken real quick. There we go. Look at this nice kind of golden brown on it. That one's ready. I think the other ones still need a minute. This one looks about ready. There we go. We're going to let those saute a little bit longer. Now we are going to add 565 grams of water. And you want warm water for this. It just works better. It hydrates the flour faster. There we go. And then what I'm going to use is I'm going to take my dough whisk here. And what we're going to do is you're essentially going to dilute your starter until it is all mixed into your water. And that way, when we incorporate it into our flour, you'll have equal bits of starter into everything. So I've got this mixed up. Okay, and now we are going to add in about a tablespoon of salt, so 3 teaspoons. So 1, 2, 3. This is going to make a pretty big loaf of sourdough. There we go. And then let me grab a bowl to do my flour in. And now we're going to add 750 grams of unbleached bread flour. So you want to make sure it's unbleached because that helps with the fermentation, like the rising process. Bleached, all those good natural like yeasts have been killed off on your flour. And this is all you add in for your sourdough. It's literally flour, water, salt, and then starter, which is fermented flour, which is made from flour and water. So we want 750 grams of unbleached bread flour. Here we go. And then we're going to give this a nice mix in. And I'm using my dough whisk, or it's also called a Danish whisk, to mix it up. It works better than a spoon because it allows the mixture to pass through it, but it incorporates it really well. So we're going to mix it up. If you're new to sourdough, sourdough is a high hydration dough. So it's going to be really wet, but as the flour hydrates, it gets less sticky and less sticky the more you work with it. So we've got our first initial mix up here. Now we're just going to let it sit, and then I'm pretty sure at the end I'll be able to show you a stretch and fold and show you what that process looks like. So let me take this out, and we'll let it sit until then. I clean up a little bit of this mess, and let's flip our chicken first. This one I think is ready now. These ones are. There we go. And beautiful. So we've got our nice kind of golden sears on our chicken. We'll cook it through, and then we'll do our next batch of chicken in. Okay. Clear off this. That way when we bring our biscuits out, we have a place to put them. Okay. Let me grab a plate for the chicken too. And some new tongs. And then we're going to check on our potatoes here in just a second. So these two we had flipped earlier, so I'm going to just check to see how they are. They are pretty firm, so I know they're just about ready. I always say when I cook chicken, the way I know that they're done is when you push down on your tongs, it will feel firm. That means it's cooked all the way. If you have a good give on it, that means it still needs to cook. I've been cooking chicken for so long, so I kind of already know how long it takes for me to saute them, but that is also a good way to check. You could also make a little cut in it to see if it's cooked all the way, or you could get out your thermometer and check until it has an internal temperature of 165. And one of the reasons why I cut my chicken in half, is so it cooks faster. You're not worried about it drying out in that sense here. Okay, let's check on our potatoes. What we're looking for is our potatoes that have I'll pull one up, and that they're really tender to be able to push all the way through. So these aren't ready yet. They're still really firm, but I know that they'll be ready is when I can take a big one and just push my fork all the way through it. Okay. This guy is ready. I'm going to leave that one on there. And then we're going to add in our next one. That one rolled all the way over. And over to these, for those who weren't in the beginning, we just seasoned these with some Worcestershire sauce, lemon juice, oregano, parsley, garlic salt, and black pepper. And that will give it a nice kind of herby, kind of simple seasoning on them. And then we will be making a nice kind of herby butter with it and a sauce that go into there. I'm going to grab a small glass container. We're going to scoop out some of the water to make our sauce. So this water is nice. It will help thicken it up because it has that potato starch in it. So I'm stealing some, and we're going to mix it with some chicken bouillon. We need about 1.5 cups. So I'm just going to steal a little bit more without completely. There we go. And you can see that nice kind of yellow color to it is from the potato starch. So it will have just a great, it will help thicken it up. And we're going to mix our chicken bouillon with that in just a second. The dish chicken breast is now ready. Okay. Here we go. Let me grab my chicken bouillon. So you could use straight up chicken broth, but I find using our starchy water from our potatoes, or if you had served this with pasta, you could use some of that pasta water. And then a good scoop of chicken bouillon will do great. Let me grab a spoon. This is going to help enhance the flavor of the sauce. We're going to do a nice big scoop of this. You can also use white wine in place of this too if you want more of a garlic white wine sauce, like a garlic butter white wine. But I find chicken broth, my kids kind of like it a little bit better. It's a bit more savory. Delicious. Okay. There we go. While these are waiting, I'm going to grab our strawberries, and we can cut our strawberries up for dinner tonight. I have my strawberries from the farmer's market I got to cut up, and then I've got the rest of a pack. We'll mix them in. My kids will know that the good ones are, they're going to be like, wait a second, these aren't all the good ones. Okay. So these I'd already washed. As you can tell, they're in my bowl. But these, I'm going to just show like the difference in color between the store-bought versus like this is such a deeper red. This one's so much sweeter. We're going to add these in here. And then I hear our biscuits calling us. So I'm going to pull these to the side, and we're going to go grab our biscuits out of the oven so that we can make our garlic butter to go on them. There we go. Let me grab a trivet and turn you off. Otherwise, we're going to beep at us. Look at these gorgeous cheddar bay biscuits made with our sourdough discard. They are just popping. That's from the baking soda and the baking powder. Those give it that nice rise. As long as that sourdough is just going to give it a great flavor, and it's a great way to use our discard. Okay, these are just gorgeous. You can see the melted cheddar cheese on them, and they are going to be scrumptious. Let's make that garlic butter for them real quick. We're just going to put a little bit of butter in our saucepan up here. We're going to melt it. Then we're going to add in some garlic salt and some parsley to give it that nice herby top to it that you see with the like the Cheddar Bay biscuits at the store.
You have a question. What pans do you use?
For baking or for cooking. For cooking, well, these are all hex clad that I use. This one's a big kind of a sauce pot. It has a nice lip. Yeah, those are all clad. But for my non-stick, I use Hexclad. Oh, I probably said Hexclad in there. So I have non-stick, I use Hexclad, which is for frying and sauteing. For my basic metal pans, I use all clad. And I've just had them since I got married, like almost 2 decades ago. They've lasted me. I've not had to buy new pots and pans, and they work really great. So I went through that. I've gone through several different types of non-stick pans. HexClad, I highly recommend. They're the only ones that I haven't scratched up. So I've had them for 2 years without any damage on them. Okay, let's get these. I'm gonna flip my chicken here, so we're gonna take a pause. Give my butter a little swirl. Once this chicken is cooked, ooh, beautiful, then we can make our garlic butter sauce, and dinner will almost be ready. I'm putting them all here because this pan is much bigger than my burner, so it needs a bit more space. They kind of cook in one section. Then I will say these strawberries from the little stand are so, you can tell they're just so like bright. They're so deep red, which means they're going to be so much sweeter than my other ones. Okay, my butter is melting for my garlic things. What we'll do is I'll mix a little bit of parsley in there, dried parsley versus fresh parsley, because it's going to taste better on the biscuits. And then we will add in some garlic salt, and we'll brush that over the top, kind of just like, the Red Lobster ones where they have that nice garlic herb butter on the top. It's super simple, but it gives you that extra little boost that you need. Okay. Put a little bit of garlic. It's almost melted here, and I don't want it to bubble up. So we're going to put in a couple shakes, about, I want to say, a half a teaspoon of garlic salt. You don't need a lot. And then we've got my parsley here. Again, about a half a teaspoon. Turn this down. I'll turn that off. And then we're just going to take this and we're going to brush this over the top of our biscuits. So, and just like this. And it's just going to give it a little bit more of that herby flavor. We did use about a teaspoon and a half of garlic salt inside our biscuits, but this is just going to give you that extra flavor on top. Give you that nice little crunch too. There we go. They're so delicious. And I will say, this recipe is pretty darn close to the Cheddar Bay biscuits that you can buy, in the box. Now, those are delicious, and I do make those a lot, but sometimes when you got to use your discard, this is a great way to use it. There we go.
You have a question for you to go over the recipe?
Yes. So, pretty simple. 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and then it's 1.5 teaspoons of garlic salt. Give it a little mix. Then you're going to mix together a half a cup of sourdough discard with 3/4 cups of buttermilk, or you could use regular milk, and 8 tablespoons of butter, so a stick of butter melted. And you're going to mix those up, and then you're going to add that to the dry mixture. And then you're going to put in about 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese in there. And then you'll kind of give it a good stir. Don't overmix it, because then it will turn rock hard if you overmix your biscuits. And then you just put them out. You can make 12. I made 9 bigger ones today. You bake at 400 for about 15, 16 minutes. And then you just put a little bit of this garlic butter on it. And voila, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay, we got our strawberries here. And our chicken looks like it is ready. So now we're on the home stretch here. Look at this, beautiful. And now I said, don't worry about any of your little chicken being stuck on the bottom. That is going to all be deglazed here in just a second. We're going to put in our butter and then our broth, and we'll bring all of that off, and that will help bring the flavor out.
Yeah, but sourdough has no yeast, right?
It only has naturally occurring yeast, which is already on the flour, but no added yeast in it. So flour, as long as it's unbleached, has naturally occurring yeast in it. And so you don't have to add extra yeast in it. That's what the fermentation process, it brings it out. Okay, we're going to take our butter here. We're going to melt it all up. And I'm making sure to kind of scrape the bottom of my pan, help bring up those little bits. We'll get most of those bits up when we add in our broth. We are going to add in a good amount of garlic here. You want about 2 tablespoons, hence garlic butter. So we've got 1 and 2. We're going to let these mix up. And then we're going to add in our onions and let those caramelize up as well. Look at that. You see we got this nice, rich kind of brown coloring because it's being deglazed at the bottom of our pan. That's going to just add so much flavor in. So we're going to add our white onion or yellow onions in first. And we're making sure we're scraping off the bottom of that pan because you want all of those crispy bits in your sauce. They're going to add so much flavor. We're going to let this saute for just a second here. Here we go. There we go. And just kind of just constantly just scraping over the bottom. Bring our temperature up just a smidge. I'm going to now add in the whiter parts of my green onions here. So here we have our dark green, which is much nicer, less of an astringent flavor. I'm going to add in the whiter parts because I want their to be cooked up a little bit to let out some of their flavor. Okay. There we go. The last herb we'll add in is our parsley because parsley, its flavor cooks off really fast. So we will add it in at the very end. So you still have that brightness. Okay. I can see my onions are starting to get translucent now. That's when I know I'm ready for the next stage. You want to wait until they start to get translucent. And that means you've kind of cooked out that astringent flavor. There we go. Now we're going to add in our broth. I'm going to add in a little bit at a time. Scrape off the bottom here. There we go. I'm going to bring it back up to a boil. And then I'll add in the last bit of my broth at a time. I don't want to just completely flood it. I want to add it in stages. That way it can kind of simmer and cook instead of bringing the whole temperature down. And luckily our broth is pretty hot because we used our potato water from it. There we go. See, I've got a nice simmer going. You can see those little boil. We're going to add the rest of it in. There we go. And now, where's my cream? We're going to add about a half a cup of cream in here. And this is going to give it a really rich texture to our butter sauce. There we go. But it's going to have so much flavor. I'm going to taste it, see if we need to add any more salt or pepper right now. Perfect. The chicken broth really adds in the flavor. We did already add in some salt. So perfect. We're going to add in the rest of our green onions. And now we're going to toss in. Remember, we blanched our snap peas at the very beginning. We're going to add these in right now. So that blanching got them to a nice tender crisp so that they won't be crunchy in here, but they don't need extra cooking. We're going to let them heat up, and then we're going to dip our chicken breasts back in there, and then we'll coat with our parsley, and then I'll drain our potatoes, and dinner will be served. Here we go. And then we're going to just slowly add in our chicken broth, or chicken breasts into there. And this is going to allow them to soak up the nice flavor, and it'll just make it lovely. And as this, I'm going to turn it down a smidge so it's not simmering so much. And as this simmers, it will start to thicken up more and more without the use of flour. It's just kind of a reduction for it, but it will be so flavorful. And I love it. The sauce also will pour it over our potatoes and it will just be so delicious. So we're just going to make sure they all kind of get submerged into our chicken. There we go. Or into our gravy here, our butter sauce. There. Beautiful. I'm going to put that one on top since that one wants to go under. And now we're going to coat it with our parsley. We'll give that a stir in just a second. But let's drain our potatoes here, and then we can get ready to serve. I'm going to turn that off.
Did you have a question? How's your garden doing?
It's doing pretty good. I've been overpicking my herbs, so I've have to let them sit for a little while. But they are, I will say, they've been doing well. A week ago, before I overpicked them, they were awesome. Now I've got to give it a little things. We're actually been doing clearing off another pot to put in some more garden beds in a sunnier side. Okay.
You have a question? Are there ever any leftovers?
Sometimes there's leftovers, but we always send them home with my parents, and then they get eaten up pretty quick. So there's not often. I try to cook to where there's just enough food for a meal, because I feel like leftovers are those things that go to die. Like they live in your fridge until you clear them out and throw them away. But guess what, guys? We are ready to serve up. So let me grab our plate, and I'm going to show you how we're going to serve this guy up. Let me get my utensils here. Got my shovel, and we're going to start. We'll slide these guys up.
And you have a question? Where can they find the recipe for this dinner?
So we will upload this video to the link on our page, and therefore when that's up there, you can just search for it and you can cook. You can just watch it along and cook along with me again. And I try to, like I tell you guys all the ingredients that go into it, and I think all of them have come with transcriptions, so you should be able to read it as well. Okay, we're going to start out with our potatoes. So we've got our boiled potatoes here. And now, while they don't have any flavor yet, we are going to be putting some of our garlic butter sauce over it. We've got our lovely chicken breast here. And now we're going to scoop up our snap peas and then just look at this delicious sauce. We're going to pour it over. It's going to make kind of like a garlic butter gravy that is just going to be so delicious on those potatoes. And then, of course, we will be serving it up with our homemade sourdough cheddar bay biscuits using our sourdough discard, about a cup of cheddar cheese. But I just think the biscuits are so delicious with this because I like to break them apart and dip them in. And just to show you what these biscuits look inside, just look at this, how amazing they are with that melted cheese in there. They're just so good. My kids absolutely love these guys. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day. Hopefully teach you guys something as I make food for my family. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate these recipes at home, you can just go to that link, find the title of the video. Like this was garlic butter chicken. So you would search for garlic butter chicken and you could rewatch the whole video and recreate these recipes at home from the beginning. Well, guys, thank you again for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.